I think we're headed in a direction that right now we have the time to make some changes and alter dramatically how we're going to eat in the future and what that's going to look like. And I think it's a really exciting time to live in because we do have that opportunity. We're kind of emerging from, we're scaling as a world, if you want to put it in those terms.
Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we delve into the ever changing and accelerating pace of global change and its impact on our lives. I'm your host, John Paul Flores, broadcasting live from the New World Studio. Today, we're diving into the world of AI and automation. As an enthusiast and expert in lead generation, I will guide you through understanding and leveraging these technologies for your business and for your personal use. And don't forget, AI and automation might be unstoppable forces, but that doesn't mean you are powerless. Tune in to learn how to make them work for you and not the other way around. But first, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the New World Podcast, where we navigate the changing world around us. I'm your host, John Paul Flores, specializing in lead generation in AI automation, here to help you understand how our world is changing and what it means for you. In today's episode, we are thrilled to have Max Barnthouse, the visionary co-founder of PLANETARIANS. Max has a fascinating journey from culinary artistry to innovative entrepreneurship, and here he's here to share how PLANETARIANS is revolutionizing the food industry with plant-based proteins. We'll dive into how Planetarians is creating sustainable, nutritious, and equitable food solutions and discuss the transformative potential of plant-based innovations in the rapidly evolving new world. Max, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
John, thank you so much for having me here. It's an honor to be a
By the way,
guest.
before we begin on the in-depth questions, because I do have some, can you share with us who Max is? What's your expertise, your experiences, and what keeps you busy these days?
Yeah, I think I can definitely share that with you. I think we only have about an hour, so I'll try to condense it down into a little bit, um, few minutes. Max Barnhouse is a culinarian primarily. You know, I grew up in the culinary space, doing a lot of farm to table, just with my family. As I grew up, I learned about food, where it came from, and that persisted to be an interest of mine throughout the last 38 years of my life. So it's been quite a journey. The short version is, I've been in and out of all sorts of small businesses, sales positions. I've started my own small businesses. And now I am with Planetarians growing this larger business. We're working through the scaling process, and the mission is sustainability and approaching the circular food economy and trying to iron out some of the kinks in there to make a better future. And I guess the thing that really keeps me going and getting up in the morning is the potential for this market right now, and just understanding that the market that we have right now in the system, it could be better. It's not necessarily wrong, and I don't want to be the person that's saying everybody's doing it wrong. But as an entrepreneur, I think the goal is to look at the systems that we have in place and try to innovate and make them a little bit better.
And I gotta ask, is planetarian somewhat a wordplay from humanitarian? Because if humanitarians care about people, planetarians care about the sustainability of the planet. Is that why you named it that way?
That's a great question. The name came more from my co-founder, Ale Manchilanzo. Um, but it's kind of a cool play on that, and it can play out a lot of different ways in the marketing space. We haven't
Yeah,
really approached the
yeah.
commercial marketing yet, but I think there's a lot of potential for planetarian, humanitarian, um,
Yeah.
Tarian, I guess, would be the root word, and I think we can use that in a lot of
By the way,
different
planetarian, is
applications.
that a real word? I forgot to research it.
That's a good question. I'll have to ask Dr. Google here in a
And
minute.
Max, if I'm not mistaken, when you were starting out, you established a company named Alpaca Eats. What did you do in that company, and how did that experience actually help you with planetarians?
Oh man, Alpaca Eats. That was a very near and dear passion project to my heart that I guess allowed me to play out the entrepreneurial dream on a small scale. Alpaca Eats was I want to say a meal prep business, but it was very health centered and focused. And it came about um, much like an exercise of, I guess, turning any idea into a business. I had I had been burnt out on my professional culinary career in the standard commercial kitchens and your brick and mortar restaurants, and I needed something new. So I was coming off probably about a 4 or 5 month sabbatical, and I spent some time camping and reconnecting to nature and just clearing out my mind. And I was always drawn back towards food, and I think more the idea of the creative side and being able to share something with other people to bring them together and maybe even improve their nutrition and in turn their lives. So I moved down to the San Francisco Bay Area from Oregon where I was living, and I started cooking for a few people, few clients privately to better their nutrition. And there's, an an underlying current that what you put in your body is what you're going to get out. So there are a lot of people who are interested in eating better, but they don't have the time to do it. So I found a few people kind of as a test market and worked for them during the day and the evenings and kind of getting an idea of, does this really work? Would people be willing to pay for it? What are the pain points? And oftentimes it was just time in general. People would love to eat better. They just don't have the time to do it. And so they'll reach for, just ready to go foods, oftentimes not really looking at what's in them. And more often than not, that leads to some longer term problems for some people. Some people are fine with it. Um, so I found a little niche and I expanded that into um, I guess I started to scale it. I was saying, okay, if people will pay for this, then who will pay the most for it? Obviously, that's how my mind worked. And so I found some pretty prominent families in the San Francisco Bay Area who who wanted to eat better, and they were willing to, pay for it. And um, so that's what started Alpaca Eats. And the idea was, I can do this for one person with a small team. I can probably do it for many more families. So that's when the journey began. That started in about 2019. And through the end of 2019 to 2021, um, I grew Alpaca Eats I'd say over 100% growth each year for 3 years. And so we were in a pretty good place. And I had learned so much from working with farmers, where the food comes from, what is sustainable, what's not sustainable, how do the farming practices and ranching practices relate to the sustainability, how is the nutrition different in the food that's raised that way, and overall just an appreciation for where food comes from in general. And I think how much food that we waste. So when you're putting so much work and effort into it, and as you start to climb, the dollar amounts go up too for the food, so that becomes money. So you're looking at all the pieces that you're throwing away, how you can utilize them. Can we make, bone broths out of these scraps? Can we make different vegetable spreads out of the little ends? And just utilizing everything. So I got a really good appreciation for that side of it, and that's where Alpaca Eats was. And that's about the time that I met my current business partner, Ale Manchulanzo. Um, and that was the beginning of the end of Alpaca Eats and the beginning of the start of my relationship and journey with Planetarians.
I want to ask what inspired you to actually go into the business of planetarians? Because being passionate about providing nutritious meals and learning about all this stuff is one thing, but actually building a company that goes over how to create this fascinating plant-based proteins is a huge other level. What inspired you to actually take that next step?
That's a great question, John. And I would have to say, what pushed me there was a lot of frustration and information that I needed to learn to apply to scale any business. And when presented with the idea of planetarians, I said, wow, this is on a way bigger scale. This is significantly larger than what I'm doing with Alpaca Eats. Alpaca Eats is great. Obviously, I had the dream of how that was going to reach a, multi-billion-dollar business at some point, but I just didn't know the pieces to scale that. And I had joined different entrepreneurial organizations. I had taken some personal business coaching classes with some great individuals about building the processes to scale that. I had worked with some marketers, and I said, hey, you know what? This is a great business in Alpaca Eats, but there's this other business, Planetarians, that really speaks to the ability to scale. And, these opportunities don't come along all the time. So why don't I take that leap, jump in with both feet, and see what we can do? And it has been quite the
Yeah, and
experience
if you
so
think
far.
about it, if you want to scale alpaca eats, you need to have consistent chefs, consistent ingredients. You need to, have it just come from the same place, and that's hard. And with planetarians, you're more sort of in a manufacturing business where it's easier to do it by
Mhm.
scale without messing things up, right? Yeah.
Very much so, very much so. And I still, you know, I still have an idea that maybe someday there will be an easier way, and I have some ideas about maybe a Alpaca Eats version 2 or something similar in the future. But I think the meal production and that last mile, if you would, in food, um, has always been a pain point, and it's your profit margins go down considerably and the labor goes up, and it's something that a lot of different companies are looking at right now. Quite a few in the San Francisco Bay Area in terms of chef robotics and just the delivery systems, some of the software programs that are being developed to aid people in, shopping and making those decisions. So it should be an exciting next 10, 20 years for that space for sure. But you are right. The planetarian setup is a lot more straightforward, and I don't want to say it's easier because there definitely have been their challenges along the way. But in terms of a manufacturing business, it has less
And
movement.
I saw what the cooked product that you have looks like, and I gotta say, it looks much better than the other plant based products out there. And I wanna ask, where are you currently serving this, and how are people liking it?
That's where are we currently serving it? So my role with Planetarians has been on the business development side. So I have been the one ushering our food into different segments. So we started not really knowing where this product was going to fit in, or more importantly, what was going to be the biggest market for it, because obviously, we want to sell the most of our protein so we can continue to scale and make an impact. But currently, today, we're working with food service, broadline food service, which encompasses healthcare, so your hospitals, um, colleges and universities, K through 12, brick and mortar restaurants, institutions. So in each one of those segments, we've been working with anywhere from 2 to 12 accounts just to make sure over the last 6 months that it's something that they would buy and then also buy again, because we don't want it to just be a one and done, and we want these to be repeat purchases that continue. So, food service in general, we're working with a handful of consumer packaged goods companies, and I can't tell you exactly who they are right now, but they're pretty large in that space, and that development just takes a little bit more time. And we're speaking to a few companies about retail as well. So, um, pretty broad spectrum, and the last one that's pretty close and become more of a soft spot in my heart is the nonprofits that we've been able to work with. And by producing a quality protein that's on par or even less than the price of some animal proteins on the market, we're able to provide protein sources to some of these communities that are at a lack of proteins in general. So that's been a really cool one that we've uncovered in the last 4 months, and I'm looking forward to working with more of the nonprofits for sure.
By the way, can you talk more about the nutrition facts of your product? How many proteins does it have, and how does it compare to real meats?
Ah,
Yeah.
yes, the great nutrition comparison. Um, you know, it stacks up very, very well, and I don't have
Yeah.
a nutrition sheet to bring up and show you, but in terms of protein per serving, and we're talking about a 3 ounce serving, 300-gram serving. So you're looking at a little over 3 ounces, but you're getting 24% of your protein content. So about 24 grams of protein in that serving, which is on par with what you would get from chicken. It's a little bit more than you would get from beef. And then you're also getting fiber, which most animal protein, well, actually, all animal proteins lack fiber. So, fiber is a pretty key element in the meat alternatives because it's going to allow your body to absorb a lot of those nutrients that are available. So, you're also getting that fiber, which a lot of I know Americans' diets these days are lacking. It's something that statistically we used to have upwards of 100 grams of fiber or more a day, and we just simply don't get that through the diets that we've adopted over the last 100 or 200 years. So you're getting a great amount of protein, um, you're getting a good amount of fiber. The fact that we're not using protein isolates or concentrates that are typically alkaline derived means our protein is low in salt. So your sodium content is under 10%, which is pretty significant in the meat alternative space. Cholesterol, you're getting zero cholesterol. So in terms of a heart healthier diet or option to add into your variety of proteins for the week, it's a great alternative for somebody who's kind of fighting some of those heart risk diseases that they're looking at. So instead of eating beef 7 days a week, swap out planetarians for one of those days. So, um, low sugar. What else? Very low fat. We add a little bit of vegetable oil just for some succulence to it. But you're getting a very healthy product. The protein is complete protein with all the nine essential amino acids coming from the soybean and the yeast that we're using. So overall, very nutrient dense product. We've had several nutritionists look at our product and usher it into schools, colleges, and universities and hospitals. So thumbs up from
You
everybody
know,
so far.
can you talk about your early days? Because at the end of the day, plant-based proteins is still a young industry compared to others. What was it like, and what difference do you see people have right now? Do you think they are now more accepting of plant-based proteins than when you started, or not?
Oh wow, the early days. I feel like we're still in the early days sometimes. No, there's so I'm of two minds about this because there's been a lot of other plant-based proteins over the last 10 years that have come out, and they've done great things in terms of raising the awareness for the sustainability side of it. But there's also been, and not to say they did anything wrong, but since some of those products have come out, they've been, higher in in additives. So they have very long labels, and it's hard for a lot of people to get behind something that they don't understand. So in a way, the early market has created a great awareness of, the potential, but also this overlying looming dark cloud that people are saying, hey, meat alternatives, I don't know what's in that. I heard it wasn't good, or, those didn't make me feel good when I ate this one kind, so I'm not going to ever try it again. So those are the things that we come up against on a pretty regular basis. And I guess the one thing that I will say is we do continue to see we see an increasing interest in the market, and even areas like, for example, when we went to Texas for the first time. Texas is known, or maybe it's just my
Meat
belief, that
lovers. Yeah.
it's a big cattle country, and it's like, bring me the beef or whatever, um, any kind of meat, the barbecue. So we went down there, and I worked with a couple unified school districts and did a couple shows where there was many school districts around, and we started to get a very warm reception. And a lot of people would say, you know what, I live in a county where it's all cattle ranchers, so no way am I going to buy your product today. But then they would turn around and tell me, "But I see where this is going, and in 10 years, now that I have your information, we'll probably reach back out because a lot of the younger generations are starting to ask for these things, and we're also seeing a shift in the market in terms of the potential for big animal agriculture, industrial animal agriculture. There's some issues with it long term." So, um, it's a huge marketing puzzle still for us as to what to call it, that everybody accepts, meat alternatives or healthier for you proteins. But we're working through the process, and we'll get there. So the early days are not too far behind us, and we're getting more acceptance, and as we build our name and get our products into other companies that have bigger marketing programs, we'll probably really unlock some uh, some golden eggs along the way.
And you mentioned that younger generations are starting to ask for this kind of proteins. Why do you think younger generations are, asking for this?
Well, I would have to ask the younger generations that same question. Um,
Yeah.
my thought behind it would be it's um, there's less of a pattern and a stigma that has been built up, and it's something that's been around um, more persistently in the lives of younger generations. Maybe they are thinking, hey, I want a a green, pollution-free world to live in when I grow up. Or they're just simply thinking, I don't have to eat beef or chicken or fish or pork for every meal during the week. Or hey, you know what? I would be open to trying something like that. So I think it's some open-mindedness. I know, for instance, my parents are in their 70s, and when I told them, what I was doing, they were pretty staunchly, I wouldn't say against it, but they had their own, ideas of what it was. And so it was a lot harder to approach them, and it took quite a few tries and presentations for them to get behind it. Whereas, somebody who's in fifth or sixth grade might say, "Hey, you know what? I'll try anything once. If it tastes good and it makes me feel good, I would be a
So
fan."
basically, they have more time to actually be familiarized with the idea of not all the proteins that we need to eat are from real meat. We can also use plant-based proteins that might actually be better for us. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's just it's kind of how the times are changing. And if you look at, music, where, maybe my parents, they would have to go see a concert or go to a record store. And those
Yeah.
were their two options of how to get music. Nowadays, kids have all different varieties of social media to find new music, decide if they like it or not, and then once they decide if they like it, they have many different avenues to purchase that from. So I think it's just the acceptance of new opportunities in different forms.
Sustainability is one of the highest core values of planetarians. So what I want to know is, can you actually elaborate how your products contribute to how we make the food system more sustainable and maybe the environment much better?
Yeah, definitely. It's probably a topic that we could spend the whole entire time on, but I'll just give you um, the elevator pitch, or how I explain it to people when I'm talking to them the first time about planetarians, is as a as a world, we throw away 30% of the food that we grow and raise. So if there's a more efficient process to utilize that 30% of food that we're throwing away, then not only are we avoiding throwing that product away, but we're also saving the vital resources in terms of land and water and greenhouse emissions that are created or destroyed when we typically raise or grow a crop. So not only are we able to save something from going into the trash or the landfill or feeding it to more animals, but we're able to divert the need for using more water or land. So, in a sense, that's kind of how we're creating a more circular based food
So
economy.
basically, you're taking care of the problem that most of the things after manufacturing these meats that we actually eat is going to waste. So you're taking care of that and actually finding use for those parts of the system.
Yeah, definitely. And it's less a
Yeah.
it's less the byproduct of
Yeah.
animal ranching, and more,
Yeah.
some of the other crops that we grow for use. But we're able to offset the need for some of the industrial agriculture that from
Yeah.
the thousand eyes view, the very high view, is
Yeah.
starting to cause some problems and already causing quite a few problems in the world. So, how can we reduce the reliance on industrial animal agriculture by providing something else that we
Yeah.
don't have to grow or raise any crops to do? So, if we can close that gap a little bit, we'll be doing a huge favor
If
for
you
the
were
planet.
to pitch to someone to try plant-based products, how would you suggest they actually try it out? Hey, maybe try it out once a week or once a month. Just try it out, or just change your entire diet.
Well, I can speak a little bit from experience that if I tell somebody to
They're gonna be
change
pissed.
their diet, the if I said, what you're doing is wrong,
Yeah.
that's pretty much an automatic no. So the best way to approach it is more from
Yeah.
for offering another option. You already have a great,
Yeah.
chicken dish. You already have a great beef dish. Why don't you just try adding this in for some variety once a week and see how it goes? So the best way to get people to adopt what we're doing, our meat alternative, is to have them try it. Because once they try it and they taste how is, delicious it is, the texture similarity to animal protein dishes that they're used to enjoying, then they can have that same experience, taste, texture. Um, they have the sensation of being full. They don't have any ill effects in terms of what the protein is doing for their body because it's working with their body in the way it needs to. And then generally, they say, hey, you know what? That's actually pretty good. I could see myself eating that, once a week or once a month. And just that once a week, that once a month, it makes a huge difference, a huge impact. And one of your first questions, actually, more
Yeah.
a numbered illustration of this is in the K through 12 schools that we went to. I think the first 3 months where we were testing, we got about a 72 to
Yeah.
75% acceptance rate. And I will tell you that as a, chef working with food for a long time, if you get 75% of the people to
Yeah.
like one thing that you're serving
Yeah.
consistently, you're winning. You just think of it as you have a dinner party and you serve something new. If you're getting over half the people to say, "Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great,"
Plus,
it's pretty fantastic, and that number just
considering
continues
you're
to
adding a
rise. So.
wild card, which is you're not just serving a different dish with the same kind of meat, you're actually serving different kind of dishes with a different kind of meat. So 70+% is fantastic, to be honest. I mean, even 40%,
Mhm.
even that
Yeah.
scenario is still great. I mean, 70% is just amazing. And some
Mhm.
people can't eat meat, maybe because their doctors say, yeah, it's too much cholesterol, it's bad for you. Thus, your product actually enables people who are not allowed to eat meat, or maybe their doctors tell them, don't eat too much, allow them to actually eat meat again.
Yeah, that's a great point that you bring up, and one that I actually had some experience with in Alpaca Eats. A lot of our clientele was looking to increase their nutrition, optimize their health, and what I heard over and over again from their nutritionists that we worked with in a collaborative method was, hey, why don't you work in a few vegetarian based meals a week? um, don't totally get rid of your your animal proteins that you love, just 2 days a week, do all vegetarian. So this offers itself really well to that atmosphere of the flexitarian crowd who are trying out, do I want to eat some more plant-based options in my diet? I don't want to kind of miss the textures and those experiences that I'm having, and I'm worried about the protein content, so I need something that fits the bill for that. And the Planetarians product food is fantastic substitute for that. And we're also seeing long term, looking at the market, there's a lot of insurance companies that are looking at the rise of dietary driven illnesses. So you have, obesity, diabetes. I think Alzheimer's can also be linked to a lot of nutritional and diet driven responses. So there's going to be a big shift in what probably monies that are provided to eat differently, I would say, in the next, as short as 1 to 2 years, and probably within the next 20
And I
years for
think one
sure.
of the biggest buyers that people have when they want to maybe try plant-based proteins is that in most cases it's more expensive than real meat. Uh, is this also the case with your product? And if so, how are you gonna try and address this?
The price. Yes. The price is a big sticking issue for a lot of the market. And, a lot of the companies that have come before us and put out um, foods that they thought were great, they're typically higher priced. And we see this in the market in general, in plant-based proteins, but also with like the cultivated meats as well. Um, they're, you know, very close to animal proteins. I mean, you can say they are, but they're very cost prohibitive. So if only 1% of the world can afford them, it doesn't do a lot to head off the issue that the other 99% is facing. So yes, cost is a big concern of ours, and in the way that we've worked to create a protein by using the excess ingredients from food manufacturing, which would sometimes be deemed even waste, we're able to reduce that price down to a level that we can sell our proteins on parity with animal proteins such as chicken or beef, or even lower in some cases. So when the consumer goes to, we'll say the grocery store, and their doctor said, "Hey, you know what, John? You need to incorporate vegetarian options in your diet twice a week, or you're gonna have some serious health problems." And you're like, "Oh, you know what? Doctor said I should do it. Maybe I should." And you go to the grocery store and you're looking at your options, and your chicken, beef meals are $4, we'll just say, for sake of conversation. And then your plant-based options are, $6 or $8. And you know, maybe you can't afford it. Maybe it's just not in your budget. Maybe you'll try it once and you'll say, "Hey, you know what? I don't think I can really spend twice as much." So our goal with our protein is not only to make it sustainable, taste great, but head off this price problem as well. So if we can make these options available to the consumers at a price that's exactly the same as animal proteins, in a market where animal proteins are continuing to climb in price as well, it should have a big impact in the decisions that people make. And again, I don't expect people to say, "Hey, I'm getting rid of something I've been eating my whole life, and I'm just adopting this meat alternative or this plant protein." No, I expect it to be, an incorporation of just one more option in the week. So, yes, I think price is huge. We're also seeing that, excuse me, with nonprofits and food banks that we're working with, and their communities that are asking for, more vegetarian options. They want to be able to eat the way that, their neighbors are eating who aren't in the same financial situation as them, but um, typically the cheaper options that are accessible to the food banks don't include the meat alternatives. So we're able to provide something for, a pretty large portion of the world, and it should be exciting to see if that's the piece that
And
makes
if
a
you
big
think about it,
difference.
we spend most of our money in groceries. So if you can lower the price of your product than real meat, I think people are gonna be more inclined to actually try it out. If we're spending a one-time purchase of thousands of dollars on some entertainment package, maybe we can do that. But for something that we use every single day, something that would be cheaper is most likely people's go-to option. So I really like that you're trying to, fight the price and try and, position yourself in that. And by the way, if there's any Texans listening, I want to ask, can you take a big chunk of your plant-based protein and make it into a brisket?
That's a dangerous question. I'm going to say that we can guide you into an experience that would be similar to that of having brisket. Um, but I'm not going to say
Yeah.
that you're going to have exactly that it's going to be brisket. And I think that's brings up kind of a cool point that I can speak about just a little bit is we're not trying to make our protein a animal protein. We're not trying to make it a chicken or a beef or a pork. We're trying to make a great texture, a great flavor that can fit into those dishes that you would traditionally enjoy. So, if there was a brisket dish that you loved, um, I would suggest that you try, planetarians with the same spices, the same cooking techniques, and serving it the same way, and just guiding, yourself or your guests or your customers into that same experience that you would enjoy with, if it's a barbecue brisket sandwich or something like that, you can smoke it, you can, put it on a grill to finish it. You can serve it on the same bread that you would a brisket sandwich with the same sides, and you're gonna have a pretty great experience with
And
it.
yeah, that's amazing. And where do you envision planetarians would be in the next 10 years?
Oh, that's a great question. Planetarians in the next 10 years. I think there's so many options for a company's growth at this point that I don't really want to limit it by making a prediction of exactly where we're going to be in the next 10 years. But I would say that we will be significantly larger, and we will be working in the different segments that we're approaching right now in creative ways to incorporate, more of our sustainable proteins into the world's diet. Um, Market wise, there's so many tangents for growth right now, and it's just finding the ones that are going to adopt the most quickly to support our growth and the sustainable practices. But to step back a little bit, the idea of planetarians too is not only this meat alternative side, but where else could we make an impact with using inefficiencies in our product system in general, whether it's food or whether that's clothing or anything else. Where else can we look at the root of some of these issues and sustainability, and make small changes to utilize some of that, some of some of the pieces that are causing, too much waste or pollution in the
In
world.
your opinion, what makes planetarians stand out from the other plant based proteins out there in the market?
Well, the taste, the texture is phenomenal, but the approach that we're using as well. It's something that from the entrepreneurial side has really been taken some time and to be approached in, hey, let's not use the same processes that everybody else is using to make another protein. Let's look at using a different way. Why can't we use some of the ingredients that people are, tossing to the side? What's wrong with those? And when you break it down on a scale and you're looking at the nutrient building blocks that we need for life, there's exactly what we're looking for in some of these different streams. So why not utilize those? Why do we have to do it like everybody else? And it's tough because you come up against a little bit of a wall when you have to re-explain how everything's working to people. But that's what we thrive on as entrepreneurs and building a new business. I mean, if there's not a challenge, I guess it, you know, wouldn't really be building something new. So. Um, yeah,
And if
that's
you
that.
have any advice to new entrepreneurs out there, what would that advice be?
Well, I think the biggest piece of advice I could give to anybody looking to get into something new or put one of their ideas into play would be to just start doing it today. Um, I have learned very little by thinking about what I'm gonna do, and I've learned a huge amount by actually just getting in there and doing it. And don't be afraid of failing, and it's gonna happen. And just get out there and try it.
I'm muted, my apologies. But since we're nearing the end of the podcast, if you can talk with a 20-year-old version of you, what would you say to him?
I would tell him to get out there and put his ideas into play sooner. And don't be as afraid of failing because it's just a quicker way to verify if your idea is going to work or not. And oftentimes, if you get something wrong the first time, you're going to have a different perspective on that, and that next perspective might be the one that really moves you forward. So that's that's the business talk I would have with 20-year-old me. There's probably some more conversations I'd have, but we'll keep it
Yeah,
at that
and
for the
if you have
podcast.
any general life advice on people, what would they be?
Oh, there's a very cool quote from Einstein that's been on the top of my mind lately, and it's everything that counts cannot be counted. Everything that can be counted doesn't count, and everything that counts cannot be counted. So, in essence, and I don't know, I might have screwed that up a little bit, but the essence of it is, data and the thinking will get you so far, and there's a human element to things that isn't always clear. And you need to be able to embrace that, and it shouldn't be discounted as well. So that's the piece I would leave
And
with
last
today.
question, how do you envision the future of the food industry?
Wow. I'm split between two minds in the future of the food industry. Part of me that loves growing food and catching fish and wishes that there was a way that we could get back to that in a sustainable fashion, but the other part of me doesn't think that's entirely possible with the world's growing population. So um, I think we're headed in a direction that right now we have the time to make some changes and alter dramatically how we're going to eat in the future and what that's going to look like. And I think it's a really exciting time to live in because we do have that opportunity. We're kind of emerging from, um, we're scaling as a world, if you want to put it in those terms. And the resources that we have are running out. And I don't think, you know, fit in the way that they're being managed to continue to feed us if we continue to grow at the rate we're growing. So I think we're going to really have to look at that supply chain and take care of it and put some more effort into managing it. And it should be pretty wild to see what happens in the next 50 years with what we eat and how we eat it and how we're getting it as well,
Yeah,
for
it's
good
really
or for bad.
interesting that there's billions of people out here in the planet. Just blows your mind out. And to think how many food you need to grow every year to sustain that, man, that's a scary thought.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, getting bigger, deeper into it with a business that's able to scale on the level of, you know, producing, I think at scale we could
Yeah,
do 8 billion, pounds of planetarians per year, which is a
hope so.
massive amount of protein. Um, It
Yeah,
is. It's pretty mind-blowing because, you eat with people in your general circle, but you're not cognizant of, how much food does it take to
yeah,
actually fuel the world on a daily basis. And it's a
absolutely.
lot. It's a
I
lot.
mean, if we can average it out to 1,500 calories a day, that's still massive. Can't comprehend that
Hmm.
with your head. Just crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trillions
Yeah.
of
It's a lot.
calories a day,
It's a
man.
lot.
And again, thank you for sharing your insights with us today. Where can people find you?
Oh, people can find me at wow, where can people find me? They can find me on LinkedIn. People can find me on www.planetarians.com. You can check out our company's always developing website. They can find us on Instagram at planetarians.net, or you can just reach out to
Do you
me
have,
and give me a call. 458 256
do you have any
1379.
announcements? Maybe something that would excite our listeners.
Oh, um, I don't have anything I can share at the moment, but I would say within the next 12 months, there will be some pretty
Yeah,
serious at scale commercial advancements that will bring planetarians to a lot more places
yeah.
in the United States and hopefully in the next, 2 to 5 years
It's amazing.
globally.
And again, Max, thank you for joining the New World podcast.
Yep. Thank you, John.
That's all for today's episode of the New World Podcast. We have explored some fascinating topics with our amazing guests, shedding light on the upcoming New World. If you enjoyed today's episode and today's discussion and want to stay updated the future episodes, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the podcast. And if you found value on what we have discussed, please consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, or if you are interested in being a guest in the future, please feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn or email me at john.paul@aicinix.com and add New World Podcast all capital in the subject line so I can see it. I always love hearing from our listeners. And don't forget to check out our amazing guests. You can find more information about them by the contact details we provided earlier. Again, thank you for tuning in on the New World Podcast. I know your time is very important and I try to always make the next episode better than the last. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, keep innovating. This is John Paul Flores signing off from the New World Podcast.